Say hi, Winnie. So I recently did my last performance at music school. I was studying jazz saxophone, and after I finished I went on Instagram and asked all of you what questions you had about music school in general. And so today I'm just gonna go through and try and answer some of those questions. I'm starting at Guildhall in September. Myself, haha. Where did you study? I did 2 years at Guildhall and then transferred and did my last 2 years at Trinity. At Guildhall I did jazz saxophone. At Trinity I did joint saxophone and voice. How easy or hard was the entrance exam? So I'd say it just depends on how much experience you've already had of doing auditions and then how well prepared you are. The conservatoire jazz courses are all really small, and so there's just not that many places and it is competitive. So yeah, they're not easy really. How long did you start practicing before your audition? So I think I started looking at the requirements about 6 months before the auditions. But I think at the start I focused more on developing the broader skills that were involved in the audition, like the oral part of the exam and just the improvising. Maybe about 3 months before I started focusing on the specific requirements, like what tunes you had to learn and stuff like that. People definitely all have different timelines in terms of how long they're preparing. I just knew for me that if I'd been focusing on all of the tunes for too long, I would just be so bored and probably play worse. Does everyone getting into music school already play an instrument? Yeah, I'm talking about conservatoire, which is usually 18 plus. So yeah, everyone's already playing. What's the funnest part of music school? I think the most fun part is that you have the time and liberty to be able to just play music for music's sake with all of your friends. As soon as you're out of college, people's priorities really change, and the fact that everybody is up for that while they're studying, I think that's the best bit. Is it pretentious? I think there's probably pretentious parts of all further education. I mean, the atmosphere of music school is really interesting because it's loads of young people grouped together who might be quite insecure about their playing still and not have much experience. People can compensate the lack of confidence with developing an ego, and sometimes that comes off as pretentious. But I think if you're really kind and compassionate, you can almost counteract the pretentious side of things and create an atmosphere around yourself that is authentic and a bit more comfortable. And surrounding yourself with people who make you feel good is going to help too. Just how competitive is it? I remember when I first arrived, I did sort of feel like everyone was trying to suss each other out, almost like establish a hierarchy. That's competitive, you know, as long as you go in knowing that it might be a bit like that, and so it's not shock. I think as long as you don't feed into like passing judgment about everyone and you just focus on your progress, then you can use it to your advantage. It can be a good thing, like it motivates you to want to be the best that you can. So to answer the question, I would say it is quite competitive and you need to make sure that you're comfortable in that environment before you go in. Also, each year is different. Maybe some years you won't feel like it's particularly competitive. How to deal with the insecurity of how you play. I'm scared of not being good enough. Everyone has insecurities about their playing. You know, musicians are very sensitive people. I definitely have things that I'm not as confident about, but I think you can be constructive with things that you notice that you want to improve, turn it into a positive outcome. Everyone has things that they're good at and everyone has things that they're not. You know, you can find flaws in everyone. There will be times where you feel like you played badly or that you could have done better. That's just part of being a musician. So as long as it doesn't make you want to quit, then I think it's okay. I think reminding yourself of things that you've done that you're proud of as well is really important, and also just remembering to celebrate all of your wins. How did you pay for music school? In the UK you can get student loans which are decided based on your family's household income. So most students tend to get one of these to support them through music school. You also don't really end up paying it all off a lot of the time, so most people opt for that route. The most toxic part of music school? One thing I found challenging was, I think there was some dissonance between the creative side of the music degree versus the more formal parts of the education. What I mean by that is there wasn't always a lot of room for creative input from students in the classes, or just in general, it felt very much like things were taught the same way for 20 years and taught the same way to everyone, which obviously isn't an environment that is particularly inspiring, like as a student. But I think when everyone is taught exactly the same thing in exactly the same way, sometimes it can really neglect the skill of coming up with your own creative ideas in a way. And I think that's a real shame. Hope that made sense. How do you reharm a song to make it jazzy? Well, funny you should ask, because I just uploaded a video on my Patreon explaining exactly how I do these reharms. If you're interested, the link's just in the description. Did you encounter condescension or scorn for studying jazz instead of classical music in a conservatoire? In my experience, not really while I was there. Maybe it was going on and I was oblivious. I think the only time anyone's ever said something along these lines was when I was playing loads of string chamber music. I told one of my tutors that I was going to go and study jazz saxophone, and they told me that I wouldn't make any money and that jazz musicians make like a quarter of classical musicians. I don't know where they got that figure, and that basically it was a bad idea and that I shouldn't. But I didn't listen to them. Anything you wish you made more time for, musically or otherwise, in your time there? I wish that I had organised to play with people more just in a casual setting, because I only really jammed a lot with people in my first year at conservatoire, and I think that's a shame because, like I was saying before, it's one of those things that only really exists in music school. The freedom to just informally play with people all the time. I think it would have been really good for me to have done that more. Did you ever have a moment where you wanted to quit music? The only time I can remember wanting to quit was when I was 11 and I had to practice violin every day. I just didn't want to do it some days, but I was preparing for these auditions and so it was expected. I asked my mum if I could quit and she was like, nope. I'm so glad that she was disciplined, because, you know, what if I had quit? I feel like my life would be a lot worse. In recent years, I feel like I have sometimes wondered about whether I should go down different avenues in the music industry, but I've never questioned whether I should be in music. It's more just like my decisions within music, if you see what I mean. Is it true that the teachers are a bit of a pain in the arse? It's just like meeting anyone in life. Some people you're gonna like more and some you're gonna like less. I think teachers are the same. I think remember though that if there's a teacher that you're not working well with, you can request to change. I did this in my last year and I'm so glad I did, because you don't have to just suffer through it if you really dislike the lessons. I think remember you have more power than you think at music school. What are the greatest benefits of going to music school besides getting better at your instrument? The first one that springs to mind is you get the opportunity to move to a new city and really try out the music scene there before you commit to having a career there. Being in London for 4 years without having to really worry about anything, that has been so valuable to me, and yeah, music college gave me that opportunity. The second thing is the chance to be around these eccentric, creative, inspiring people all the time, you know, whether that's your teachers or fellow students. That's gonna make you a better person as well as a better musician. What's more valuable to you, the instrument skills you learned or industry connections you made? I would go as far to say that the people that I've met who have been really, really valuable to me when building up my career have all been from outside of conservatoire. I mean, obviously you meet fellow musicians while you're there and some cool teachers, but I think I always saw music school as the place that I'm going to really be the best sax player and singer that I could. And then I sought out external opportunities to network in London. For example, just going to gigs, jams, social media, messaging people all the time, going to events. So I think the skills that I learned playing wise were way more valuable at conservatoire than, you know, the industry connections that I had the opportunity to make there, because it's just not really a priority for them, I don't think. Does music school actually prepare you for life as a working musician? In some ways, but not in every way. And I think as long as you go in knowing that and knowing that you're going to have to find other ways to prepare you as well as music school, then this won't really be a problem for you. If I hadn't have gone, I'd be a worse player and maybe people wouldn't book me as much. But also, like I said, I made the effort outside of school to really help prepare myself for when I left as well. Do you think the actual conservatoire experience has furthered your career? I would say 100%, because I wouldn't be in London without it, and I wouldn't have had the chance to play and study my instrument as much without it. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not everything. What motivates you to practice? Do you enjoy social media, or is it a necessity? So I'm motivated by the fact that I just want to be better. The main reason that I wouldn't practice is because I don't know what to practice, and I solve that by just listening to something that I think is really cool and then working out what the musicians are doing. And yes, I enjoy social media. I actually love it. I feel like you can tell from the content that I make on Instagram and everything that I do really care about it and enjoy it. I'm just passionate about making videos and using it as a tool to help me as a musician. Oh my gosh, it's really raining. I'm sorry if it's just got really dark. Did you ever feel judged at music school? If yes, was it useful? As a musician, I feel like you have to be really comfortable with being judged. You're on stage and everyone's watching you. People are gonna form opinions about you, whether they say them or not, or whether they're good or not. And so, yeah, I definitely felt judged. And also your teachers, they're there to spot things that you can do better, and I guess that's inherently judgment. It can be constructive or positive judgment. Judgment is useful as long as it's not overly negative all the time. Most outrageous event that happened to you? Is there drama? Any drama we should hear about? Because all of the jazz courses are so small and you're with these people for 4 years, you know, everyone's in everyone's business. People know each other so well, and also given that the environment is generally quite insecure and everyone's a bit sensitive, there is drama. But also it's really interesting because the relationships that you form at music school, they're personal, but they're also working relationships, and you don't want a bad reputation. So I feel like people try and work through it because they know that they could end up working together in the future, if that makes sense. But yeah, there is definitely a lot of gossip, and just hang around with people that make you feel good and confident and comfortable. Just try and distance yourself. Do you have plans to do more school? Honestly, I don't think that I will go and study performance anymore. Like I wouldn't do a jazz masters. I've just been in that world for so many years. Like I was at a specialist music school before conservatoire too, and I'm really ready to just focus on my career now. I think maybe when I'm a bit older, I could go back to uni and do like an academic masters. I feel like I would be interested in doing that potentially, but right now I'm good. Honestly, I'm good. How do you feel now that it's all over? I mean, it definitely took a few days for it to sink in. I've been studying music since I was 8, and so suddenly being out of that forever is something that is going to take some time to adjust to. I'm basically just trying to work out how to keep to a routine where I do still feel like I'm making progress and motivating myself to work hard and having goals still. I feel so happy that it's over. It's so fulfilling to have got to the end. Can't believe I'm free. I dropped out of music school and never finished. Was finishing it worth it or fulfilling? It's quite common for people to not finish music school because maybe people start working and it just stops being a priority, or the degree itself, people don't ever ask you about your degree as a musician in terms of jobs, so it's not that valuable to attain work, if you see what I mean. So a lot of people just do it in order to start working, and then as soon as they start working they drop out. But I think it was really worth finishing for me, and it is kind of a miracle that I ended up doing the full 4 years. I feel fulfilled for sure. The most asked question was, is music school worth it? And I would say yes, it is definitely worth it. I would encourage anyone interested to just audition and see what happens. It's not your job to decide if you're good enough, it's the panel, and you just never know. I would be in a totally different place without it. So last question, do you still even like music now? I would say that I like music more than ever now, which feels great. When I first went to conservatoire, all that I was focused on was being the best sax player, musician that I could. Coming out of it, music just means so much more to me than that now, and conservatoire definitely played a massive part in that. By giving me the time to explore, experiment, make mistakes in music, also because I could live in London, I just have been able to experience this incredible music scene that has really opened my eyes to so much more. Thank you to everyone who wrote me a question. I hope that all of that made sense. If there's anything that you'd like me to elaborate more on, please let me know in the comments and I can get back. Also, if there's anything that you'd like to see more of on this channel, I'm going to be spending some time on YouTube over the summer. My Instagram and TikTok is linked in the description if you want to go check me out on there. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. See you soon. Bye bye.